Alright guys and girls, welcome back to the shop. Had a bit of an epic disaster here. So you can see I have an enormous chip out in the wood right there, which, you know, this wood here has been giving me all sorts of trouble. Look how deep that is. This Western red cedar that I've been using, not all Western red cedar, but this particular couple sets that I've had, it's just been tearing out when cutting the router channels and all over the place. So it's not altogether all that surprising that this happened, but it is very disappointing. This is kind of a worst case scenario for mistakes to have. Fixing something like this, I'm gonna do my best to make this look all right, but it will never look like it did before this splinter came out. And how did this even happen? So I'm literally sanding it with a flat block with 220 grit, very fine grit, and I believe a little fiber must have been sticking up just a hair because it caught underneath the paper and just ripped off that piece. Totally unexpected. Luckily, and this is the biggest thing, this is the first thing you do when something like this happens. Luckily, I was able to find these two little pieces right here, and these are absolutely precious to me right now. I spent a good deal of time looking around the bench, and I found those two, and that gives me like 80% of the puzzle pieces to fit this back together. I am still missing a little piece that I wasn't able to find, but I'm just going to have to deal with that and replicate it a different way. But these you absolutely want to find. One of them was stuck underneath the paper, this big sliver, and the other one had flown off over here, and I, you know, was just scrambling, looking all over the bench for it. But anyway, I'm going to go through this. Again, it's not going to look exactly like it did before, but I'm going to see how good I can make this look. There's a number of things we have to think about. One, super glue. Super glue stains Western red cedar really deeply. It's not that I can't use any super glue, but if I use it, I have to use it very sparingly and very cautiously. If I can avoid using it though, that's even better, but we'll see. I might have to use some super glue. Titebond is my other option for this. I might use a mixture of both. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do. This is the fun of repairs like this, as if you can call this fun. The fun is that everyone's a little bit different, so we have to treat it as its own unique repair. Okay, so your first thought here might be to use some sort of fillers or wood dust or spruce dust here, but I want to squash that thought right off the bat. On spruce or Western red cedar or really any light colored softwood, you're not going to use fillers. They're just going to make it look worse, which is why these little puzzle pieces that I found are very important here to maintain. In fact, you saw me poking around with them and pulling them out of the hole in the beginning, but actually if I wasn't filming this, I wouldn't even do that. You want to handle those as gently and as minimally as possible because you don't want those puzzle pieces to abrade or fall apart or change in any way. They fit perfectly right now, and we want them to maintain that really nice fit so that it looks as seamless as it can look. So I've got a set of dental picks here which are going to be useful for manipulating this. I've got some tweezers as well because my chubby fingers are not a great tool for manipulating small parts. I also have a number 11 razor blade which may or may not become helpful. It's good to just gather around some tools here because you don't know which ones in the moment you might need to grab. And then I think I'm gonna need, so we're gonna go with the Titebond first to get these two pieces in, and then we're gonna have to make the third piece. I'm gonna make a little block here that I can use as a caul that we can put some weight on once I get these set into place. So to have a good caul here, I'm gonna wrap this in, wow, I got way too much tape here, but that's fine. I can just cut off the excess. I'm gonna wrap this in packaging tape, and that way this shouldn't stick to the glue squeeze out at all. because especially in this case, if it does stick, if the squeeze out sticks to our block, then when I go to take this off, this is such a small fragile piece that I just installed, there's a very good chance I'll just pull that piece right back out. So wrap it in packaging tape. Okay, so wish me luck here. We're gonna try and get these first 2 pieces in there, and I have to be careful with the glue because I don't want too much or really any glue to squeeze out into the space where my 3rd piece is going to go, which we don't have yet. And you know, I could make the 3rd piece right now, so I'd have all 3 to get in there, but honestly, manipulating 3 pieces while the glue is in there is too much chaos for me, so I'm just gonna make my first goal just to get these first 2 in, and hopefully I don't accidentally overfill that space with the tight bond. Let me just pull these to the side first, just so I can very gently blow the dust out of there without blowing away my 2 pieces. Let's use tweezers here. Gotta flip this over. There we go. Oh yeah, that's looking good. Great. I think I need a dot, a very small dot of glue. Bigger than I wanted, but you can only do so much. Now, this piece might have it upside down. Yeah, gotta flip that. We're working against the clock here because the glue is very hard to flip around. There we go. Okay. All right, so the pieces are in there. Use my block, kind of squeeze that out. See, I am getting a little bit of glue squeeze out into that space there. But as long as that glue squeeze out stays shallow enough, then it shouldn't be too much of a problem. I'm really just at this point trying to make sure my pieces are exactly where I want them to be. Right there. And I could take a pick and pick out some of that glue, which I might do right now. If I had a little wooden pick, that would be better. I didn't grab that though before I started. That's fine. I can just use this. I'm not trying to damage the area. It's just trying to pull up a little bit of that glue. So as you can see, very finicky stuff. Not for the faint of heart. Holding that down. Being a human clamp for a minute here just to help that set, and then I'm going to put a weight on this. And actually, can you grab me? I didn't bring it over. Where? Yeah, that's it. Thank you. Okay. All right. So that's really just the first step of this. Gonna let that dry, and then we'll see what we have to do next. Okay, so this is sat for about 2 hours. Probably could have, I wanted to wait at a bare minimum 45 minutes, but I had other things to do, so this has been sitting here for about 2 hours. Longer is better anyway. And let's go ahead and sand this back with just some 220 grit here on a small block, just to see what we're looking at now. Okay, don't get too excited. It looks okay right now, but there's dust in that cavity. See, when I blow out that cavity. So now we're on to the tricky part. You can see I just have this little piece to do. On the previous two pieces that I put in pretty seamlessly, you can see that there's a grain line that runs straight to the center of it that connects into the existing grain beyond the repair. And so that is really what makes this look so natural, whereas if we filled it with a random piece of wood, or even worse, with some kind of filler or putty, then you wouldn't have that continuity of the grain across the fill. Okay, so that is what we're trying to achieve with this really small piece right here. I still have the little coaster that comes from cutting out the sound hole here. A lot of people keep these for a variety of sort of posterity and keepsake sentimental reasons. When you go to the Martin factory tour, they actually give you one of these with Martin guitars stamped on it as a cool little coaster. But I don't really do anything like that, so we're going to cannibalize this piece. And what I can do is I can find a nice piece with that single grain line. There's that one grain line that runs across, so I want to grab a piece like that. Often when I do little fills and repairs like this, I'll just take a chisel and pop off some small chunk and shape it, but this piece is so small here, and I really want this to be done right, that I think, now I might still use the chisel, but I think what I'm going to do instead is going to be a little more precise. I'm going to draw out this shape as best as I can where I want it over that grain line, and then I'm going to cut it out with a jeweler's saw, similar to how you would cut out a wood inlay. I don't have a high degree of confidence in my ability to do this right now, by the way. So, you know, I'll give myself maybe a 20% chance of this coming out looking as good as the previous one. So I think this will actually be fairly noticeable. In fact, I was considering doing something to make this look like a knot or some sort of character in the wood, at least for this little small part right here, which is kind of like throwing up the white flag, because I really don't want a knot on the, even something that looks like a knot on the soundboard face. But it's really a matter of what's going to look worse at this point. So let's give it a shot. Maybe I'll surprise myself here. Alright, so let's use this grain right here. And I'm just going to eyeball something approximating that shape, but a little bit larger. Okay, so that'll be my piece. Okay, I've got my jeweler's saw. I've got my board for cutting out inlays. Now, the tricky part here is once I release this is going to fall on the floor and get lost. So let me see if I can catch it somehow. Oh, perfect. It landed right there. There it is. All that for this little piece. Alright, I hope this works. Alright, so let's take a look at this. So I have two options. That fits pretty good. Surprisingly close to the shape there. Oh, I just snapped a little piece in half. I knocked the top off of it. Which doesn't matter. I'm only using this bottom piece right here. But I got to be more careful. I almost stabbed the soundboard with my tweezers. That was too tall to begin with anyway. Oh, that looks pretty good. Wow. Okay. At this point, my options here are to try to glue this in with the tight bond again, which I prefer, or because this is so small, I'm getting it in there. I got kind of lucky. You know, it's in there right now, but I'd have to pull it out again to put the tight bond in, and through that process, I might not be able to get it in just like it is right now. So I'm tempted to just drop a little bit of CA glue on that and call it a day. Alright, you know what? Screw it. We're doing the tight bond. I just really don't want that CA glue to stain this at all. And I think I can get this glue in there without too much of an issue. So let's gently pull that up. Put just a dot of glue there. Okay, that's in. I think it's at a very slight angle. Let me see if I can use this block and get it in there a little better. This is scary. Okay, it kind of fractured a little bit, but just off the top. What I was doing with that block is I wanted to use a little bit of force to kind of compress it in there, and I did, and I think it's good, and I think I'm just gonna leave it alone now. Very interested to see how this is gonna look when we sand it back, but for now I just gotta let that glue cure. I'm not gonna touch it. I'm gonna walk away. We'll check in on this later. Cool, so let's go ahead and see what this looks like now. So I could just take a sanding block to this and sand it back, but because this piece is rather tall, there's a lot of leverage off the top of that piece. So if I push down on this, I very well could break that bond and kind of pop the piece back out. So I'm gonna try something different instead and take this X-Acto knife and just very gently okay. I'm still gonna sand that now because now it's not so tall, right? I took the majority of it off with that X-Acto knife, basically just held flush on the soundboard surface. And because these number 11 blades always have a little bit of a bevel to it, it doesn't actually cut it flush, it cuts it a little bit high, which is good because now we can sand the rest. Okay, pretty nervous here. Let's see how this looks. It is better than I thought this whole thing would turn out to be. Obviously it's not perfect, but honestly, you can't get perfect on something like that. It's just such a catastrophe when something like that happens. And you know what? This whole episode here just reminds me of sort of the fraught difficulties that you always end up dealing with when you use a lot of less common woods, let's say. Especially for tops, because tops are tricky, they're soft, they really want to tear out even in the best case. It's just what I do, playing around with a large variety of different materials. I have fun doing it, but you end up having stuff like that happen all the time. Now hopefully I can get through the rest of this build without any more odd little chip outs happening like that, because really there was nothing I could have even done to prevent that chip out. It really came out of nowhere. I was just sanding the top. So hopefully we have seen the last of that, but we shall see. Alright guys, that's all I got for you today. I will see you in the next episode. Bye for now. If you learned something here, please give this video a like and subscribe so you can be notified when I release a new DIY guitar making video. And if you want to really learn more, take one of my structured online courses at ericschaferguitars.com or register for a hands-on guitar building workshop here with me in Burnville, Pennsylvania.